Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you for our second session, online session of the Canadian Percussion Network, le réseau canadien de la percussion, avec notre collègue Mike Schutz, qui est pas très loin ce soir. And tonight, it's a great pleasure to focus on an instrument that we all hear, love, but we don't know very much how it works, how it's made. And we have the rare pleasure to have one of the makers in Canada. So we are welcoming tonight Jocsan Rivera and a player of the handpan, the percussionist João Catalão. And Jocsan and João have been collaborating together for the past few years on different projects, and they will present how the handpan are made. And Jocsan is in his workshop right now to be able to give demonstrations as well. And João explain how he has been exploiting the handpan and various stages of the handpan making in different creations and how that is coming into play in his practice. And to run this interview, it's my pleasure to call Daryl Bickert, who is one of the members of the Canadian Percussion Network. And Daryl is a percussionist in Saskatoon and is also a fan of metal instruments, making some himself. And so he has prepared many questions. And of course, everyone is welcome to ask questions. You can type them in the chat, and Daryl will summarize all of that and ask the questions to our guests, who are actually both originally from South America and now like Montrealers for many, many years and true Quebecers. So Daryl, Jocsan, and João, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Fabrice. And thank you to our guests for joining us this evening and taking the time to share with us some instruments that I'm sure everyone is very interested in learning a lot more about. I wonder if we could start, Jocsan, just talking a little bit about the instrument itself. I know the name handpan is even sometimes kind of confused with some other names that are around, like hang drum and other things. I wonder if you could tell us what the instrument is specifically, and I guess how you made it, how you make them.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here. Thank you, Rivera, for the introduction. And first of all, I would like to thank Fabrice and João for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to talk about my instrument and introduce them to the Canadian Percussion Network. So yeah, the name is handpan. It was coined by a maker around 2009 in the States. Well, it's the general name because originally the name hang was used. It's the brand in a way. So it's like I don't know. For example, when you say a keyboard, you're gonna say a Casio or a Yamaha. Instead of calling them that way, they try to find a name that it's closer to the ancestor of the handpan, which is the steel pan. So the handpan, in a way, it's actually two shells made out of steel. And what we do is, in a way, we shape the steel and we try to form membranes. And on each of the membrane, we move frequencies in order to imitate what strings do naturally, meaning having a fundamental and then having an octave and a compound fifth. And so, of course, on strings, the harmonics, they appear naturally and they go higher, but on handpan it's very difficult since it's a membrane. So it's similar to having a two-dimensional string. So we just do the first three frequencies and we put them into a natural ratio. So
could you show us what those membranes are like that you're talking about?
Yes. So I have an instrument here. I don't know if you can see it. So this is the note, the membrane itself. So this note is an F. If I may, maybe I can move the camera a little bit so you can see. So the fundamental is F. Then you have an octave. So, and the way we isolate these harmonics is exactly the same way as we do in strings. So even though if it is a membrane that reacts similar to drums or skin percussions, we try to move the way the membrane vibrates so it can imitate strings.
And I've noticed both on the model that you have there and also on your video that some of those membranes have a dome that faces inside, and then the one on the top has the dome that's comes out the top.
Yes.
Is there a reason for that?
Well, yeah, first of all, the dome itself, for example, if you compare the notes inside of a steel pan, it has no dome. And what the function is, it pushes the highest harmonic even higher, so they become very dry. So it clears the sound and it enhances the lowest frequencies that we can hear. So the timbre is way more clear. And it creates stability as well inside the notes. And the reason why some of them are impex or apex, it's basically the lowest sound. It creates a kind of a more percussion impact instead of a more soft sound. So you can create a more, the bass is more pronounced, and yeah, so it's mostly for playing. And since the center note, it's in a way, these are very simple scales, and the center note usually is the fundamental of the scale. So it creates more impact on that note.
So when you're playing one that is that has the dome raised, you're playing right on the dome, but on the ones where the dome is indented or inverted, you're not actually playing on the dome then?
Well, it depends. Usually you can play on top of the dome, for example, but at the same time, depending on what you try to do with the timbre, if you play more on the border of the membrane, you can in a way enhance the harmonics, so you can hear more the compound fifth, for example, or the octave, instead of just the three sounds at the same time. So, but usually, yeah, you even with the notes on the side, you can play on the center, even though if the dome goes from to inside. But if I play here, you can hear more the fifth. I don't know if you can hear it well, instead of. So you can, it feels like playing with a filter. For example, if you play on the border of the notes, and you play in I don't know, a C note, for example, you can enhance the compound fifth, which is a high G. So instead of hearing a C, you hear more of a G, very high, and then you go towards the center of the note, and then the fundamental appears, and it's more pronounced. And yeah, it change. I don't know if I'm expressing myself well, clear enough, but it's it's very similar to a filter. So when you go towards the center of the note, you go towards the fundamentals. When you go around the note, you play with the harmonics.
Sure.
Without isolating them.
Yeah, not unlike playing a bass drum, right? Where right in the center, you're going to get deeper.
Exactly.
And right at the edge, you're going to get a lot more of the upper.
Yes, and especially on the center notes, they usually go lower. So the highest frequencies that usually they're very dry, they're like noise, they become audible and they appear as frequencies closer to the harmonics with the notes around the center. So what we try to do usually is to tune them with a certain the next harmonics on the series. So on this example in particular, it's tuned to B flat. I don't know if you can hear it. Instead of, so you have 4 frequencies inside of the center notes.
Mm-hmm. And I noticed on your video that you have quite a few different versions of the instrument. Usually that centered dome, and then a kind of a different number of
Yes.
additional notes in addition. How do you decide what arrangement you're going to have?
Well, depending on the customer, what he wants to have as an instrument. For example, some people want very specific notes, or for example, if someone wants a higher instrument, I mean the tonality, a higher tonality, and it means the notes are smaller, so you have more space, because in a way the diameter of the instrument is always the same. And then if you need to create more notes, you need space. So in order you can inflate in a way the shell to a certain extent, but the space is limited. So if you want more notes, you need smaller membranes, so you can put more of them. On the contrary, if you want a very low instrument, the notes are very big, so the space is limited. So that's one of the reason why some instruments have more notes or less. So the register, but also depending on the scales. For example, if someone wants I don't know, a harmonic minor, for example, there are more dissonant. There is more dissonance, so you need a little bit a different setting of the notes. And so it's a case by case scenario in this case.
It might be a good place to get the input of a performer as well.
Yes.
So João, how did you decide what kind of arrangement you wanted for your handpan?
Can you repeat the question?
Well, Jocsan was telling us that the how many notes you have is always in discussion with the performer. So how did you decide what you wanted in the instruments that were made for you?
In this case, because the first time I had the contact with the hang or the handpan was the hang for the original maker from Swiss, and I had already the instrument with the notes. So my work was to know how I could deal with the notes in the instrument. So was the inverse thing. I had a constraint about the notes I had. So with this note, I could compose the music. It was the first time I used that for the six drums show, La Grande Tortue, the Great Turtle, or the Big Turtle? Great Turtle. The Great Turtle. So because the instrument seems a shell of turtle shell, and in this case what I try, because normally you are limited about the dissonance, limited about the scales. So since I had one tonality in the instrument, I try to work more with the double tonality in the harmony of my music. So I could use more modes, and like if my instruments in G major, I compose in C. So I have C plus F sharp. So I work more in this kind of harmony as Darius Milhaud or Hermeto Pascoal from Brazil, who do a lot of this kind of a lot of mix of tonality, like D major if it's C major. So in the first hang we had, I had two chords, was like a D flat major and F major. So it was like an really separate. So I tried to find one melody was like between the both tonalities.
Okay. So when you're interested then in doing a composition that has new tonalities, then you have to go and have another handpan made?
Yes, or
Basically.
I can show you some examples because once I mix my hang with tambour. It's a kind of log drum made in Quebec who is really pitched. And so I could take some notes from the tambour and other notes from the hang. So like that I have a new tonality in there. Maybe I can try to make you hear. That's the same hang. That's the composition for 6 drum. So in this composition, I use with 6 drum, and Olivier Trambenoil gave the idea to use like handmade instruments to accompany the hang time, the hang. In this case, I work like was the tonalities F, and I was like more in A minor music. And I came back to the was a kind of Frisian a major with Frisian because I have the B flat, so I enjoy to change the things. So in this case, I changed the tonality with the other instrument who gave me the notes I didn't have, and the other example is this one is in F minor, and I mix with the tambour. The sound is not so good, but you can have an idea. Oops, didn't change. Again. Oh, yeah. Can you see?
Yes.
On va miser sur le savoir. L'université McGill y est fondée par James McGill en 1821. L'université de Montréal s'installe en 1878. L'université du Québec à Montréal ouvre ses portes en 1968. L'université Concordia en 1974. Près de 200 000 étudiants fréquentent ces temples de la connaissance. Pour faire une ville sur l'île, il faut du savoir. Pendant ce temps, les avions arrivent à Montréal.
Mm-hmm. So when you're performing then, I would imagine that there's very much a personal way of playing, like because you have certain notes on one side and you have certain notes on the other side, and you probably develop your own sort of personal style of playing the instrument. So I was thinking if you're writing this down, are you writing down like the composition? You'd include notes, but do you also include sort of a map of what the instrument looked like in terms of the arrangement of notes? Or do you even share compositions with other hand pan players?
I didn't have the occasion to share that with other people, and when I begin to compose through that, I never played that before. So I start more imagine I figure out what the sound was, and I figure out what music I want in my head, and after I was in the instrument to play the music. So it was more a part of the practice in the instrument already. But yeah, and one thing I try in this style to make different, because normally in the hand pen music I heard before, you have a lot of alliterations as the same thing in the last example, like kind of a sonata or rotation kind of style from marimba,
Yeah.
and I try to make that more melodic, as in the first example, like the hand pen play a melody. That's not so I don't see that a lot. That's one guy in Israel I saw, he played like jazz solos in hand. He had kind of two sets of hands to have all the chromatic notes there. But normally you have this kind of stylish, it's really rhythmic music. You combine like an ostinato, and with the ostinato you try to get a melody upside up the ostinato. But since I try to get to imagine more as a melodic instrument. It was
I did notice in one of those videos that we got a chance to see the bottom side of that one pan. Maybe it would be a good time to get the maker back in. Can you show us the bottom of the hand pan and maybe tell us a little bit about what's part of that process?
Yes. So on the instrument here, you can see there's a hole there, and there are some notes. One of the reason why there's a hole on the bottom side, it's because you need to tune the instrument. The process of making the instruments needs several type of tunings during the whole process, and at the end we do like a fine tuning, and we need to do it through the bottom hole. So we introduce the hammers inside, and you hit the instrument from the inside. You hit it from the outside as well, but depending on what you need to work on, you use the inside. So that is one of the reasons, and one of the consequences of having two shells glued together and having a hole is that you create new frequencies using the Helmholtz, like a Helmholtz resonator, which is basically a bottle. So you have a bottle, and you when you blow on the bottle, you can create a sound. Well, this is the same principle. So I don't know if you can hear it there, but so you can play with that as well. And originally the instrument didn't have notes on the bottom, but the instrument evolved, having more notes, different tonalities, even trying to have chromatic setups, as João was saying, with the guy who played like I don't remember well, I think he played a monk arrangement, and he used three set of instruments, so it was very chromatic. And so yeah, you can have a larger range, adding notes on the bottom as well.
How many notes did you have there on that one? Like there
On
must,
this instrument, on this
yeah, on
instrument,
that one. Did
on
you
the
have
bottom,
notes on the bottom of that one?
yes. So
Yes.
four notes on the bottom, and I don't know, 12, I think 12, I think, on the top.
With like an extra row there. That
Yes,
is
exactly. And in this particular case, since the instrument is high, I mean, it's an F, so it's considered like a higher instrument. You have more space to have a second layer of notes. But usually there's only one center note and one range of notes around.
One question did come in from the group, wondering, João, whether you prefer playing with mallets or hands.
I need to play with hands. When I try to play with mallets with Jocsan, that was a good thing to work with Jocsan. I knew the fragility of this instrument. So it's really, really fragile. Even if you play too loud, you change the tuning of the instrument.
Oh,
So
wow.
it seems metal, it seems something really hard and not fragile, but it's completely the inverse thing. And Jocsan saved our lives a lot of times because sometimes the hang pen and go out of the stage and was almost completely destroyed. And Jocsan came and saved us to tuning the instrument again. So normally the better thing is use the fingers and really pay attention to not play so loud. And that's an instrument who is hard to control that, because if you play, he gets saturated really easy also. If you play really strong, you put a lot of energy, you detune the instrument, you lost sound quality. So the best way to play that is really with the hands. Sometimes we use steel pens, sticks, but you need to play really soft.
See, we have to be cautious with composers, not to show them anything other than hands when there's a composer around. Yes.
That's, I think that's very nice.
Especially percussionist.
Jocsan instruments that they have more notes than the normal hand pens I saw before he tried all the time to develop the instruments. So I don't know Jocsan if there are others makers who put notes in the bottle shell of the hand. You are the unique who do that?
No. It's very common nowadays.
Yeah. Now.
Yes.
With your the new set of hand pens, you have a lot of this.
What about that extra row there? Is that unique to your hand pans?
No. Actually, it's I mean, the instrument was created around 20 years ago, so it evolved. I mean, it's very new. Don't get me wrong. It's very new into the instruments world, but since then it evolved, like using different alloys of steel, creating more resonance, sustain, larger instruments, smaller ones, to have a different range of notes, and also adding notes. So the every maker around the world, in the handpan world, of course, they're pushing the limits of the steel, and creating very low instruments or very high. So there's a variety of them, and so everyone's working to push the limits of it.
That's
I noticed in your video that you have there was a bunch of what looked like bowls stacked up somewhere. Is that what you start with, or do you start with a flat plate that you form into a shape?
I start with the flat piece of steel. I used to cut them myself. I started around 10 years ago, and so at the beginning, I cut everything by hand, but nowadays I use I use water pressure to inflate the steel, so it's hydroformed. So you create the shell by pushing water. You hold the piece of steel with a metal plate, and then the water comes in and push the steel to form the shell.
Wow. One question came in here. A lot of people have noticed instruments that are similar to the handpan, but they're more like a tongue drum where they've cut the metal.
Yes.
And just wondering the importance of the thickness of the metal when you do that.
Well, first of all, these are very, very different instruments. Actually, they are closer to marimbas or vibraphone because they are plates that vibrate. In physics, there's a difference between a plate that is held with one side, clamped side, plates, or like a free plate. So a marimba is a free plate or a vibraphone, and these instruments are called tongue drums. They are clamped plates. So these are plates, so there's no harmonics in it, and there are partials that appear naturally. Handpans, it's completely different. There's no hole in them. There's no strings inside or electronics. It's just a membrane, very similar to skin instruments, but in a way very close to what speakers are. So you have a membrane that projects the sound, and you can have harmonics inside of them. So the getting back to the question, the thickness of the steel on the instruments you were mentioning, the tongue drums, the steel is very thick. So as in not as thick as a vibraphone, but if you have them too thin, it doesn't create a good sound. While a handpan is a thinner steel, and you put compression into the notes in order to create the fundamental and then move the upper harmonics.
You make that sound like it's so simple to just move that upper harmonic.
Yeah.
Is there a way to describe in simple terms that I might even understand how you do that?
Oh, it was a very humbling experience. Yes. In a way, I studied music when I was younger. I can say I have a good ear, but working with this instrument, it was a very humbling experience in the sense that I couldn't understand anything. You hear a lot of noise, and you don't know what to put where, or so in a way you hammer the whole surface of the instrument, the whole body of the instrument is exactly the same material as in the membrane. So for example, you took a guitar, you have a wooden body, and then you have the strings with a completely separate object, and the harmonics on the string are created naturally. While on this instrument, it's all the same. There's no separation. So you need to create, in a way, a separation, hammering around the notes, molding the shaping the notes, and then you create compression. In a way, it's kind of similar of the principle of producing a sound on the musical saw. So you push it like together in the musical saw, to create kind of an S shape, and then the S shape inside becomes more soft in a way, so you can create a note. So you try to create that on each of the membrane, like a compression, so the note start to vibrate separately from the structure that holds the notes, and that was a very difficult to grasp at the beginning.
You do the membrane and the dome all sort of at the same time, or do you start with just making that membrane area and then create the dome out of
I
it?
tried both approach, and there's a small differences, but in a way I start with the dome and then I shape around.
Oh,
Yes, I do it that way. In a way that you can do both actually, but that's the approach I use now.
Very interesting. Oh, here's a question I came up with earlier. Is there like a beginner version of this instrument where everything, like if someone was learning to play it, they just have to learn a specific one, or is there a version that is, if this was your first time wanting to play a handpan, you're likely to find this kind of pitch arrangement?
So the instrument itself, the way it's built and the way we create the scale inside the instrument, it's very simple. And if I compare, for example, with a piano where you have like 88 notes and then you have different octaves, it's chromatic. So when you try to approach a handpan, it's very simple in that sense. Harmonically, it's very simple, and the number of notes is reduced. So what comes into play, it's the rhythmic part. So you can play with the surface integrated into your play. So the approach is like having, for example, skin instruments that are tuned, and then you can have different pitches in order to create a scale. But all of this inside of the same instruments with a more resonant and more beautiful sound. So the approach is very, very simple. All of the scales that are used, generally, they are not chromatic. So for someone who doesn't have any musical background or more technical, the approach is very simple as long as you have the touch, you know, the way how to produce the sound and a little bit of sense of rhythm.
So the handpans that you're making most of the time for people, what is a common request for the arrangement of the pitches?
So usually it's most of the scale I do are minor scale. People really like that kind of sound, and probably between I would say D minor, C sharp minor, and E minor. These are the most common tonalities that people are interested.
And then how do you physically arrange them on the
on the pan? I understand the question. Okay, so for that, it's usually, for example, when you have two notes together, you try to avoid half steps, and it's very similar to a kalimba, in the sense that you have when you go up the scale, you alternate your hands or your thumbs, and then you go that way, you know, one thumb at a time, one towards the right and the other one to the left, and then you go up the scale. So this is basically the same arrangement. I'm saying the notes around the center notes. So basically the same thing, but at the end, the notes comes together. So for example, on very common example is the D minor scale. So the center you have a D, and then you have the fifth on the note around the center. So the fifth, it's A, then you have B flats, then you have C, D, E, F, G, A, and then you finish with the C, a high C. So that way you can create chords with one hand, two fingers. You can create chords, and then you have the scale separated in two. So on one side you have A minor, and then the other side it's kind of a B flat major.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that similar to the pan or pans that you have, João?
Exactly. Since you have this kind of binary thing, and you need to since if the notes who are half step or even a step are together, they vibrate by sympathy. So it's really hard to tune you also. And you have normally the first tetra, I don't know if it's the good term in English, tetrachord. the first tetrachord of the tonality in one side and the other one in the other side. So it's nice also because in tonal music, everything go around this both space is of the spectrum of a tonality, so can help you also to know like if you are in the tonic and the subdominant part of the scale, you have that separate physically. So you can if you are in the subdominant, like in or in the B flat, your left hand are in the strong time part of the time. If you are more in the A minor, is the left hand who are in the. So you can think like appoggiature things like if I begin with this part, the right hand, I'm more in the tonality, the first degree, and the left hand with the other part of the scale. So that when I compose, I use that a lot.
And in the composition line of question, then you are doing all of your own creations, but do you know of anybody that's composing for the instrument? For instance, recently, the Saskatoon Symphony had Sean Matevetsky playing tabla with the orchestra, and it was very rare to have a composer write for tabla and orchestra. Is there anything like that for handpan yet?
I don't know if composer in classical music I haven't done this kind of work. I have a phantasm, a fantasy to do like a orchestra of handpan orchestra with Jocsan and six drum. Like I talked that for many years. Maybe one day we're gonna do that. Is like to compose a orchestra of handpans and ask composers to written for this formation. But I don't know, Jocsan, do you know some classical composer who written down now for?
Well, it's not a composer, but it's a player who made a composition for handpan and orchestra. So I don't. The approach is very simple, and it's not someone who's known into the music. I mean, on the. It's not a composer. That's what I mean. It's a player, handpan player. So I don't know if there's a score or it's a. But I know of at least one piece using an orchestra and a handpan.
I think maybe some contemporary composer get afraid to use that because for the acoustic limitation of the instruments, you need to have more consonant scales. So sometimes in contemporary music, they try to not do that. And one idea of organize an orchestra of handpans is to show the composer that you can written all the music with this kind of instrument. If you combine like two instruments, you can have also the chromatic things, and the players need to develop a new skill because you need to touch more instruments. But like it's kind of normal today to I already see instrumentists who have more than one handpan who have the chromatic way of to do that. But yeah, it's
And
like you have this kind of the instrument work like that, so you need to find a way to dépasser. How can I say?
It's also a
surpass.
gentle instrument, and it wouldn't cut through an orchestra as well. But we did
Yes,
like
exactly.
the tabla, so I suppose that would be a possibility too.
You need to be definitely amplified.
Yeah.
But as João was saying, that's we're working around that idea of eventually having a composition, or maybe like ask composer, what, you have this instrument, these are the techniques that you can use, the possibilities, and can you cook something for us?
Have you made any sets, like he was talking about having a player that has more than one hand pan? Have you made any sets of hand pans that were specifically intended for that purpose of having more pitches?
It was kind of the opposite way. I wanted to play just to show the possibilities. I play a prelude from Bach. And yeah, I needed like 7 different instruments in order to reach the range of the piece. So it was kind of difficult to think what instrument I need in order to have the whole chromatic set, because Bach is very, very chromatic, and it goes from the lower range to the high, and then the voices interchange it. So it's kind of yeah, you way more easier to play it on piano.
Yeah, no doubt. Have you done any experimenting with recording the instrument? Like, is it possible to put a microphone inside from the bottom?
No, I don't have a good knowledge or background with mice, and so I haven't experimented enough, to understand well how to amplify it so you can have a good sound. But yeah, there's a lot of people who've been working with that. I don't know about João. How do you record the pieces you were showing before?
Yeah, normally when I play, I put simply overhead on top of the instrument.
Do you put anything on the bottom?
If I have the change, but the most of the sound is the top microphone.
We are getting close to needing to wrap up. So if there are people tuned in that have questions yet, there would still be time to put some questions to our guests. So feel free to put your questions in the comments or in the chat menu. Let's see. Were there any other things that you had hoped you might be able to bring up during the session today? Either of you?
Maybe one thing I didn't speak was like the use of transductors with the hand. And
yes.
I use that because it was the first experiment, and only with the bottom part of the shell. And we see with Dominique that responds very well with normal transductor, and he can work in a lot of ways as a speaker with the sound quality of the metal. And you also can make, if you choose the good frequency, you can make the whole shell vibrate, so you can have like a feedback effect with the instrument also, if you try to choose it very well. And the kind of one waveform you send in the transductor make the instrument react really different. So with and the sound is short, it's work like a stick in the instrument. So you have the impression that you have someone who are playing the instrument with a stick. And if you send a longer sound with the good frequency, it work like a feedback effect, and can you send where you want, is work as a speaker also. And after you saw this experience, give you idea to Jocsan and Dominique, who works with me, to develop also this kind of work. But there's a work in progress now to fabricate an instrument who use the transductor, and the instrument you can program like a tape in the computer and send to the instrument, and you have the impression that the instrument are playing alone. You have really the impression that is the finger of someone who are activated the nodes of the instrument. So it's kind of a really interesting way of use electronic with the handpan that's not so developed until now.
How do you attach the transducer to the?
It was no, when we did that was like with glue, normal glue.
Okay, and
Yeah,
where did
epoxy
you
glue, I think.
and where do you attach it? Like it
Yeah,
must
yeah,
make a difference.
Exactly. Yes, it was like kind of try and error. Was not so. We
Lot of
attaching one
testing.
part of one part of the instrument, and each part of the instrument have more a different way to response to the waveform. So was kind of we test, and you took the place who are more music for us.
Was it typically like on one of the membranes or sort of in spots that weren't membranes?
Because since we had only the bottom shell, we didn't have a lot of membranes to work inside. We didn't have the upper part. Only two, I think. One only had that, and Dominique, like he put his one, his transductor was amovible. Amovible.
Movable.
Movable.
Yeah, movable.
Okay, thank you.
So he could he could change the node. He put the transductor, and each node has a different response for the instrument. So was kind of his stick for the concert. He had a normal stick and a transductor who he put in different part of the node. And my one was like the shell only. So we try to find the more thick part of the instrument to put the transductor.
Just to specify on this particular project, they were used open shells. So the Dominique is a friend of ours, and with João they were looking for plates in order to make them vibrate, and then they contact me in order to see if I have something, and I say, look, I have these shells that didn't work for instruments. I'm gonna throw them away. Do you want to use them? Because they were already membranes on them. So they using open shells. It's not the same sound as with the instrument. It was beautiful. I don't know if we have time. You can show the recording, João.
Yeah, I think it was the video
It was
everyone received before.
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
in the invitation to this Zoom
Yes,
meeting,
yes.
there was a link to that video. Yeah. Yes.
If you are curious about that.
It explains the use of sticks and mallets in that video.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
That's why you exactly.
It was allowed.
Yes, that was a good thing.
Very good. Well, thank you both so much. I think we're just going to wrap it up here. We've got 4 minutes before 7, and I know Fabrice wanted to do a little promo for the January thing, but I really appreciate your time and sharing with us a passion that you have for this newer instrument.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Fabrice?
Thank you, João. Thank you, Jocsan, for sharing your knowledge, and certainly learned a lot. I've been playing with those instruments a little bit over the past years, especially with João, and it's quite amazing how it's evolving and see what else can be done. So I wanted to take this opportunity to speak a little bit about our first event in person for next year, the space between, or à l'interstice en français. It will take place at McGill, January 25, 26, and 27. The 27th being in collaboration with the Quebec chapter for the Progressive Art Society, the Quebec Day of Percussion that they're putting together every year. And so we collaborated to have the 3 days event. The registration will be open very soon. It's free to attend, so everyone is invited. The call for participation is closed now. We just finished reviewing everything, and we're just about to release the first schedule. And the registration will be open, I think, within 3 or 4 days. We're just waiting for the confirmation of the hotel prices and reservation process, because we are negotiating some special prices for people who want to stay, not from Montreal, and want to stay for a few days. There will be many sessions. We have concerts every day. We have presentations. We have guests. Daryl will present some research on the bell plates, and we have lots of things which are posters. We have demonstration lectures. We have performances. We have papers and talks about various topics all related to percussion, of course. And on the Saturday will be more clinics and more concerts. So it will be 3 days packed with fun, probably the largest event dedicated to percussion ever in Canada. And so we are very happy. And the first of a series of 4, thanks to the grant we got from the SSHRC, Social Science and Humanity Research Council. And together with Mike and colleagues, so Tori, Daryl, Mark Adams, Nadia, Ayun, and so many colleagues from the percussion world in Canada. So I hope that many of you will be able to come or join in somehow. And if you miss this one, you won't miss the next one, which will be in Acadia in October 2024, or Winnipeg 2025 in the summer in August. So I hope that you enjoyed your evening, and I hope you'll be able to join us for the Space Between. And the next online session will resume after the Space Between. It will be in the new year, and we have 2 events that are prepared for you that we will publish and promote very soon. Thank you very much. Thank you, Daryl, for hosting and brilliantly this evening. Thank you, Jocsan and João again. And thank you all for attending. Have a good evening.
Thank you.